I will start.
Please start, Doctor.
Exactly. Okay, so we'll start. And I'll show my, today I'll go. Today I'll go in another way. हेलो
जी डॉक्टर साहब कंटिन्यू।
आज मैं स्लाइड दिखा रहा हूं, दिख रही है स्लाइड सर?
अभी स्लाइड के ऊपर क्लिक करेंगे सर।
ओके ओके, स्लाइड में ओपन करने दो पहले मेरे को। ओके राइट, वेट। दिखाई दे रहा आप सर?
यस सर।
ओके, थैंक यू। सो अब शुरू करूं?
यस प्लीज सर।
हाँ जी, हेलो माय डियर लर्नर, यू आर वेलकम बैक to our next session, and it is about our schools of counseling. So how the school of counseling has been originated? It has developed almost in 1940s as one of the innovative alternate to psychoanalysis by Carl Rogers. So this psychoanalysis was at the dominating period, dominating on psychotherapy. Then this school of counseling has started to think about the development of new therapy, and Rogers challenged the belief that client cannot understand and resolve their own problems with direct help from experts. So that means the Freud was psychoanalytic or psychodynamic. School of psychology or psychoanalysis therapy was focusing on the repressed desires, dream analysis, free association, whereas this Carl Rogers has challenged that how a client cannot understand and resolve their own problems with direct help from experts. Expert here means the counselor. That means with the help of the counselor, a client can solve their problem. Three questions focus on the problems rather than on people in therapy. Carl Rogers focused on the problem. Man is not the problem, but problem is the problem. Right? So there is a problem, so man has been disturbed. So you and me are disturbed. The client-centered therapy, I'm discussing this right now. The client-centered therapy attempt to understand the client's internal frame of reference as the client reveals it. This is definition of client-centered therapy was by McLean et al. 2015. It is also called the person-centered therapy in your syllabus. It is written person-centered therapy. Person-centered therapy or the client-centered therapy, both are the same. People who are seeking help have a natural tendency toward growth, healing, and their self-actualization. So people who are seeking help, that means the people who are going to the counselors, obviously they have the natural tendency. They are thinking obviously toward their growth, healing, and their self-actualization. So what the definition of person-centered therapy or the client-centered therapy, which is known as also client-centered therapy or a non-directive or Rogerian therapy. So these are the four. Carl Rogers is the name of the founder of this person-centered therapy. It can be called client-centered therapy. Another name is the non-directive or the Rogerian therapy. It is an attempt or it is an approach to counseling and psychotherapy that places much of the responsibility of the treatment process on the client, with the therapist taking a non-directive role. What do you mean by the non-directive role? That means the therapist will not give any directions. Client is the centered, client centered or the person centered. That means the person is the central figure, right? Central power. And the problem is to about the person. So the person is to focus himself or herself. So the focus is on the person to self-focus, right? So that means the psychotherapy that places much of the responsibility for the treatment places on the client. So it is very clear. Maximum responsibility for the treatment is on client, and with the help of non-directive role of therapist. What the objective of this client-centered therapy? The primary objective of the therapy is to resolve the incongruence of the clients to help them able to accept and be themselves. So there is a concept given by Rogers, that is incongruence, that is lack of coordination. Therapy is to resolve the incongruence when there is a lack of coordination between thought and action, for example. So automatically the person start to disturb. There is a lack of coordination between thought and action. So that is called the incongruence. Congruence means the proper or the adequate coordination between thought and action. So this is the primary objective therapy is to resolve the incongruence. The individual about his or her thought and action, or about his or her society, there is a lack of coordination. So when there is a lack of coordination, either between action and thought or between person and society, then obviously lacking the coordination, the person start to face the problem. So this is the main focus, is to resolve the incongruence going on between thought and action or the person society. So there are 6 conditions for therapeutic changes. What are the 6 conditions? The therapist-client psychological contact. So obviously therapist and the client are to be contact first. They are to meet first. A relationship between client and therapist. This is called therapist-client contact. They are to contact each other. They are to understand each other. They are to understand the problem, right? Each other's. So that means the relations between the client and the therapist is the first to start person-centered therapy or therapy, non-directive therapy, or you can what is the other name? The person-centered.
डॉक्टर साहब एक बार अपना वीडियो बंद करेंगे?
मैं
हाँ, थोड़ी आवाज कट के आने लगी है।
वीडियो go back.
अब ठीक है, आवाज एक बार प्रयास कर लेते हैं, अगर फिर बीच में कटेगी तो फिर करेंगे इसको।
Okay sir, okay. So second one is client incongruence. Client incongruence means that I already explained the meaning of client incongruence, that incongruence exists between the client's experience and the awareness, there being vulnerable and anxious. That means the client is vulnerable, the client is having a problem, and the client being in experience or client's his own experience lacking the coordination about the awareness. So third one is the therapist congruence. The therapist is to congruent with the therapeutic relationship. Therapeutic congruence, that means the relations between the client and the therapist, that is called therapeutic relationship. Therapeutic relationship only starts when client and counselor or therapist both are making a contact, right? Only then therapeutic congruence start. That means the relations between and the client. Next condition is therapist unconditional positive regard, UPR. That means The therapist accept the client unconditionally. There is no condition. For example, there is a male counselor and a female is going for counseling. He cannot refuse being a gender biased, right? There should not be any condition. No condition is to be imposed. So, right? Suppose alcoholic went to the therapist or the counselor cannot impose direct ban on the intaking alcohol directly. It is a non-directive therapy. Indirectly, you can go anything, but directly you cannot put any condition. Unconditional positive regard. The therapist accept the client unconditionally without judgment, disapproval, or approval. There should not be any stereotyping about the client. The therapist is to accept in toto, in reality, what the real situation of the client at the time of contact. The therapist is to accept him. This is called unconditional positive regard. This is a very famous concept given by Rogers about the unconditional positive regard. In our day-to-day life also, we should apply unconditional positive regard. We should accept the person without putting any condition. Right? Suppose if there is a bad person.
डॉक्टर साहब मैं फिर रोक रहा हूँ 1 मिनट के लिए फिर रोकना चाहूंगा, माफ करना मुझे। आप प्रयास कर सकते हैं सर, अब आपकी ऑडियो बहुत अच्छी है, वीडियो बहुत अच्छा है, आप प्रेजेंटेशन कर सकते हैं सर। यदि आपके से हो सकती है प्रेजेंटेशन तो आप।
हेलो,
आवाज आ रही है सर मेरी?
सर स्क्रीन बंद कर दूं? स्क्रीन बंद कर दूं?
नहीं, अगर हो सकता है प्रेजेंटेशन तो आप कर सकते हैं आप।
हाँ मैं कर रहा हूँ, मैं कर रहा हूँ। I'm going to okay. सुनाई
जी डॉक्टर साहब, आपकी आवाज थोड़ी सी कट रही है आज। डॉक्टर साहब एक बार एग्जिट कर जाएं और दोबारा ज्वाइन करें।
ओके ओके ओके, अभी कर रहा हूं, अभी एग्जिट कर जाऊं।
माइक अनम्यूट कर ले डॉक्टर साहब।
कर दिया
जी, प्लीज कंटिन्यू डॉक्टर साहब।
ओके, थैंक यू थैंक यू थैंक यू थैंक यू। अब स्क्रीन पे रहने की तो जरूरत नहीं है ना?
अगर पॉसिबल है तो आ जाइए।
मैं दिखाई दे रहा हूँ?
हाँ हाँ, आप दिखाई दे रहे हैं।
हेलो,
आप दिखाई दे रहे हैं सर।
सो I'm discussing with a therapeutic relationship. Whatever the contact is to be made between the client and the therapist, he must be congruent according to the terms and conditions fixed within the client and the therapist. The next therapist positive regard that has discussed, and then therapeutic understanding. The therapist is to understand the empathic way of the client. The
आपकी आवाज
of the client.
तो सब मुझे रोकना पड़ेगा डॉक्टर साहब मुझे रोकना पड़ेगा आपकी आवाज कट रही है
आवाज को
आप अपना वीडियो बंद कर दें डॉक्टर साहब वीडियो बंद कर दें आप अपना
आवाज कट रही है
आप अपना वीडियो बंद कर दें
हेलो
डॉक्टर साहब आप अपना वीडियो बंद कर दें
ओके सर ओके वीडियो बंद कर रहा हूं अभी कर रहा हूं सर अभी कर रहा हूं अभी वीडियो बंद कर रहा हूं सर मैं हेलो कहाँ है मेरा वीडियो ये रहा नहीं ये लो सर बंद कर दिया
कंटिन्यू करेंगे
ओके थैंक यू सो I am discussing about the conditions. The therapist empathetic understanding is that therapist experience an empathetic understanding of the client's internal frame of reference. That means the therapist is to consider empathetically about the existing problem of the client. And the next condition is a client perception. The client perceives at to a minimum degree, therapist unconditional regard, empathy, and understanding. At least client must have the confidence level about the therapist, unconditional regard, empathetic, and understanding. That client must have the confidence. So these are the 6 conditions. And now, what is the concept of self? Carl Roger is the name of the person who has given this client-centered therapy, and the Carl Roger has focused mainly on the self. Self, a person, that means client-centered therapy or the person-centered therapy. Client or person means self. If we are self-empowered, if we are self-conscious, if we are self-motivated, so obviously we can find the solution of the problem. Motivated, automatically will not be in a position to find the solution of the problem. So that means the Carl Rogers mainly focused on the role of self. And what is the self? The self is an outgrowth of what a person experiences. An awareness of self-help, a person differentiate him from others. Self is an outgrowth of what a person experiences. An awareness of self-help, a person differentiate him from others. That means how a person is unique from others is called self. There are 2 self. One is real self, another one is ideal self. He has described, Carl Rogers has given 2 types of self, real self and the ideal self. The more is the gap between real self and the ideal self, the more will be the problem. As per the Rogers, why there is a problem? The problem between the self and the society exists when there is a lot of gap between the real self and the ideal self. So more the maladjustment, more the abnormality, more the disorders will be happen if between real self and mismatching. For a healthy self to emerge, a person need positive regard, unconditional positive regard, and a positive regard. There is ideal self. These are the concepts evolved, given, or proposed by Carl Rogers. What is the purpose person client-centered therapy? To foster in clients closer agreement between the client's idealized and actual selves, better self-understanding. The first purpose, objective, aim of client-centered therapy is to help the client to better understand self. Second one is to lower level of defensiveness, guilt, and insecurity. That means to reduce the guilt and insecurity and defensiveness among the client. The next, to foster more positive and comfortable relationship with others and an increased capacity to experience and express feeling at the moment they occur. That means positive relationship and comfortable relationship with other is to be developed in the client. What are the main component of person-centered therapy? Number one, congruence. I told you the congruence, incongruence, empathy, all these things, but now I'm telling you the meaning. What is the congruence? C-O-N-G-R-U-E-N-C-E, congruence. C-O-N-G-R-U-E-N-C-E, congruence refer to the therapist openness and genuineness, the willingness to relate without concealing behind a professional problem. Congruence, that means the adequate relations, in nutshell I'm telling you, within client and therapist. Unconditional positive regard means the therapist accept the client totally, in totality, whatever the client is, अमीर है, गरीब है, या लड़का है, female है, right, पढ़ा लिखा है, अनपढ़ है, in any capacity, the therapist जो भी होगा, counselor जो भी होगा, उसने उसको in totality accept करना है, without putting any condition, and without evaluating the client, without putting any condition, without evaluating the client is to be accepted in totality, and there is no particular feeling, action, or characteristics is to be considered of the client on which the client will be disapproved. That means no disapproval can be given to the client on the basis of any feeling, any action, any characteristics of the client. In totality, the client is to be accepted without putting any condition. That is called unconditional positive regard. The third one is empathy, A-M-P-A-T-H-Y. Empathy means showing an emotional understanding of and sensitivity to the client's feeling throughout the therapy session. Complete therapy session, suppose 50 मिनट का therapy session continue है हमारा, 50 मिनट तक continue, उसको emotionally हमने client को understand करना है, उसके sensitivity level को, उसके feeling को, throughout the sessions we are to understand as a client, as a therapist, or as a counselor. What are the techniques are to be used in your person-centered therapy? That is the listening. Things to listen. I told you yesterday that the therapist having a lot of questions about the client, but in addition to lots, the client give the additional information to the therapist about himself or herself. That means the client should be the therapist should be the good listener. Second one is accepting. Accepting here means, again I'm referring the example of unconditional positive regard. Accepting the client in totality. This is a technique. And next, third one is respecting. The client is to be respectful, right? Either in condition, whether the client is any background, किसी भी background से आया है, गरीब है, अमीर है, जो भी है, हमने उसका respect करना है as a therapist, as a counselor, because the client is more important for the client, the therapist. Then understanding. There must be a particular level of understanding between client and the therapist, and that is to be retained. वो अंडरस्टैंडिंग लेवल हमने थ्रू आउट दिस सेशन हमने मेंटेन करना पड़ेगा. जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग लेवल है क्लाइंट और थेरेपिस्ट के अंदर हम डेवलप करेंगे, दैट अंडरस्टैंडिंग लेवल इज टू बी रिटेन थ्रू आउट द थेरेपी, थ्रू आउट द सेशंस. द नेक्स्ट, रिस्पॉन्डिंग. Both, it does not mean the therapist is to responding only. It will be better that client therapeutic session रिस्पॉन्स आना चाहिए. सपोज आप डॉक्टर के पास गए हो, डॉक्टर को दवाई दिया है, दवाई रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं कर रही है, दैट मीन नो इफेक्ट. सो अगर थेरेपी रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं कर रहे हैं, दैट मीन कोई इफेक्ट है, सो द क्लाइंट विल नॉट बी रिस्पॉन्डिंग. Am I right? Or simple, you are giving the best to the client as a therapist, but client is not understanding, or client is giving you best, the therapist is not understanding. So that means neither the client nor the therapist to be responding. So responding decides from the, she should respond to the technical sessions or the counseling sessions going on. The client must be listening to the respective sessions. Then what are the applications of this person-centered therapy or the client-centered therapy, where we can use this one, right? So in which area, what problem we can handle with the help of this client-centered therapy, Rogerian therapy, or the non-directive therapy. It can be used to treat a broad range of people, wide range of people, irrespective of your age, irrespective of your gender, income, or whatever the problem. It can be applicable to wide the people. Number one application. Number two, people with schizophrenia. The schizophrenic people can be treated and can be given this client-centered therapy, and it is best suitable to the schizophrenic people. The next person suffering from depression, anxiety, alcohol disorders, cognitive dysfunctions, and disorders, this center can be applicable, can be used for these types of problem, and it can also be used for individual family therapy. I told you we have individual therapy, group therapy, and the family therapy. Individual counseling, group counseling, and family counseling, right? So can be used in any setting, either in individual, group, or the family. We can be to and then believe people are capable of self-healing and personal growth. This is a big statement given by Carl Rogers, that people are capable for self-healing. We are a master of personal growth, which leads to self-actualization and concept in client-centered therapy. The person when start to actualize himself or herself, that means the person is fully capable to heal himself and fully capable to grow personally. This is the statement that every person, every human being is capable for self-healing and personal growth, which further leads to self-actualization, an important concepts in client-centered therapy, right? So actually, what steps we are to take? First step in client-centered therapy or the process. Number one, self-exploration. Self-exploration in terms of client and in terms of therapist both. Both are to explore the possibilities, the best possibilities. Client is at maximum expectations, assumptions from the therapist. And therapist is also having a maximum acceptation and the assumptions. If agar suppose a client okay jata hai, the therapist will get the confidence level boosting, and automatically the name travel. और therapist का जब client ठीक होके जाता है, लोगों को बताता है उसने वहाँ treatment लिया, मैं ठीक हो गया. So the name travel. So the exploration, self-exploration, because both are having some expectations, some assumptions, both. So both they are to have some self-exploration. The second process, second step, that is self-acceptance. We have to accept. The therapist is to accept the client in totality. Similarly, the client is also accept the therapist as a therapist or as a counselor, right? There should not be any informal level. The therapist है तो therapist है. ये नहीं आप जाके ड्राइंग रूम में बैठ के चाय पीते आराम से गप्पे मारते हो. That cannot be, because there must be one line between therapist and the client, that both they are accepting in a formal setting as a client and therapist. And then self-change. Obviously, change will happen if the counseling sessions or therapy going on in a smooth manner. Obviously, the first change will start with the help of the client, self-confidence, self-actualization, self-exploration, right? And self-acceptance. The client start to self-accept himself or herself. Yes, I'm feeling some change, right? So both the sides, there may be some changes. When changes happen at the client level, so obviously the counselor or the therapist also getting more confidence, right? So the change happen at the both part. First is from the confidence level of the therapist. And what that there is a therapeutic approach how we go for this client-centered therapy. So just we start from the increased self-awareness, self-change, self-exploration, self-acceptance, self-actualization, and the self. Self is playing a bigger role in client-centered therapy. Ourself. So therapeutic approach of this client-centered therapy focusing on the first level that is called increased self-awareness, then increased self-acceptance, then followed by increased self-expression. कॉन्फिडेंस बूस्ट अप होगा ना दोनों में, क्लाइंट भी ठीक होगा तो उसका ऑटोमेटिकली एक्सप्रेस करने ज्यादा लग जाएगा. सो रिड्यूस्ड डिफेंसिवनेस, अगर एक्सप्रेशन ज्यादा आएगी तो क्लाइंट डिफेंसिव वे में कम होगा, डिफेंसिव कम होगा. सो इंक्रीज्ड ओपननेस. सो फाइनली both are very open. Client is to be open and the therapist is to be open, right? So this is a therapeutic approach. We start from the increased self-awareness. We are too aware, and because we are there for the change, and client is lacking the self capacity, self power, self authority, self worth. The therapist is to make him aware about the self awareness, right? The self awareness further help you to increase your self acceptance. Self acceptance further help you to increase your self expression, right? When you expressing better, you are using minimum, you will be minimum defensive, and when you will be minimum defensive, you will be more open. When you are more open, so automatically you increase your self awareness. So how does client-centered therapy work, right? So the sole object of the therapy is to resolve the incongruence of the client, to help them to able to accept themselves. That means we have to help the client to accept himself. The client start to accept himself. Suppose if one person client is having a bad body image, self-perception about the body, self-body is negative. So through client-centered therapy, the client can start to realize to accept his body image. So that means this is to resolve the conflict, resolve the incongruence of the client and the problem, right? So this is how does client-centered therapy start or work. The purpose of the client is foster closer agreement between the client idealized and actual self, better understanding. अंडरस्टैंडिंग है. अल्कोहलिक को ये पता है मैं शराब पीता हूँ, शराब खराब होती है, बट अल्कोहलिक इज लैकिंग ए बेटर अंडरस्टैंडिंग. अल्कोहलिक इज हैविंग अंडरस्टैंडिंग, आई एम अल्कोहलिक, मैं शराब पीता हूँ, उसको पता है शराब मेरे शरीर को खराब करती है, शराब मेरे पैसे खराब करती है, उसको पता है शराब से मुझे सोशल प्रॉब्लम होती है, उसको पता है, अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, बट he or she is lacking a better understanding. So with the help of the client-centered therapy or the person-centered therapy, we enhance the better understanding level of the client. And then we are to reduce the level of guilt, level of insecurity about the within. That means that we are increase the expression, and we have to increase the security of the client. Then we have to foster more positive and comfortable relationship with others. हमने उसको ये एडवाइस करना है because this problem is related to individual or the society, inter or intra causes है problem के. So there should be the better and the positive relationship, comfortable relationship of the client and the society with others. obviously give the better feeling among the client. Then process of client-centered therapy. So the client talk about external part of self, internal external self है ना हमारा real or ideal self. External part of the self is to be explained by the client. Internally, you have a first meeting with the client and you have to build up the rapport with the client. And in the first meeting, no client can be explained you internally. They explain you externally. And the therapist to understand in depth with the help of the clues you are getting through external self-expression of the client. Client describe feeling but do not recognize them. Right? उन फीलिंग को एक्सप्रेस करता है, रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करता है. शराबी को पता है वो शराब पी रहा है, राइट, डैमेजिंग है, बट कैन नॉट रिकॉग्नाइज कि कहां पे डैमेज हो रहा है उसको. राइट, ही इज फीलिंग अ डैमेज बट कैन नॉट रिकॉग्नाइज कि विच पार्ट इज डैमेजिंग. मेरे पैसे खत्म हो रहे हैं, मुझे शरीर कमजोर हो रहा है, मुझे सोशल रिलेशन खराब हो रहे हैं. ही इज नॉट रिकॉग्नाइजिंग द डैमेजिंग पार्ट. क्लाइंट कैन डिस्क्राइब द फीलिंग, फील कर रहा है वो, but cannot recognize the damaging part. Right? We have to accept him, we have to help him to recognize the damaging part. So client talk about self as an object in terms of past experience. Client always explain you about the past experience. Yes, with the help of the past experiences, the present status, present situation happen. Right? So the client help you to explain about your past. The next, client accept own feeling. जब वो पास्ट को बताता है, देन वो अपनी फीलिंग्स को एक्सेप्ट करने स्टार्ट करता है कि हाँ, यस, ये मेरे साथ ही हुआ था. देन द क्लाइंट एक्सप्रेस फीलिंग फ्रीली. जब थोड़ा सा एक्सेप्टेंस स्टार्ट हो जाता है क्लाइंट के अंदर, वो और ज्यादा एक्सप्रेसिव हो जाता है और ओपनली एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ फीलिंग फ्रीली स्टार्ट कर देता है. Client express feeling in present, and then in present situation what the client is sitting with the therapist in present situation, वो तो कई बार एक्सक्यूज करते हैं, हाँ मैं वहां पे था, मेरे दोस्त के साथ एक प्रॉब्लम हुई थी उसके साथ, पर दोस्त का नाम देता है, वो अपने आप के बारे में नहीं पता, मेरे दोस्त ने ज्यादा शराब पी ली, प्रॉब्लम होगी, मैं भी वहीं बैठा था. राइट, अपने आप को कंसील करते हैं बिकॉज ही इज हैविंग ए मोर डिफेंसिव. राइट, ही इज हैविंग मोर गिल्ट. राइट. So when after breaking the defensiveness and guilt, so he become free to express his feelings in present situation. And then when clients start to live in present, thereafter client trust new experiences and related to other openly. Client start to experience the new experiences and he start to relate these experiences with other clients. That means आपने डॉक्टर के पास गए, राइट, एक डॉक्टर के पास आराम नहीं हुआ, दूसरे डॉक्टर के पास गए, दवाई ली, आराम हो गया. You are getting a new experiences and then you are sharing with your old friend, with the peer or the parents or the family members. कि तो डॉक्टर के पास गया, नहीं गया, वो भी उस डॉक्टर के पास उसको भी आराम नहीं हुआ, उसके पास गया उसको आराम हुआ, मैं भी उसी के पास गया, मुझे फिर आराम हुआ. राइट, you start, the client start to relate own story, on picture, on problem with others. Right. So therapeutic technique I already explained. And then what are the weaknesses of client-centered therapy? Practice can be complicated. To do your private practice can be complicated because person is the center one, client is the center one. Right. एक सेकेंड, 2 मिनट, मेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कॉल है, प्लीज. हेलो तरुण जी, मैं ऑनलाइन क्लास में हूँ, मीटिंग में ऑनलाइन, प्लीज हरी अप. हेलो, विजय जी. हाँ जी, फ्लैट खुला पड़ा है, कोई लोग नहीं लगा हुआ, चेक करिए. अभी आधे घंटे में आ रहा हूँ ऑनलाइन मीटिंग में, अभी मैं आधे घंटे में ही पहुंच रहा हूं मैं. तरुण जी, खुला है बिल्कुल। तरुण जी, मैं प्लीज आधे घंटे पहुंच रहा हूँ, ऑनलाइन मीटिंग प्लीज। सॉरी सॉरी। हेलो। So the practice can be complicated because the client is the center one, and when the direction of the therapist, but it is non-directional. अब डायरेक्शन नहीं, नॉन डायरेक्शनल है, क्लाइंट ने अपने आप करना सब कुछ. So this is a very big challenge, the very big weakness of this client-centered therapy. It may be difficult to know how to respond when a client asks about advices and need more direction. ये तो नॉन डायरेक्टिव है, क्लाइंट तो डायरेक्शन मांगेगा आपसे, ज्यादा एडवाइस मांगेगा आपसे, बट आप डायरेक्शन देनी नहीं है. सो इट विल बिकम मोर डिफिकल्ट फॉर द थेरेपिस्ट. Sometimes empathy might not be appropriate. A therapist should learn what is appropriate and when to different individuals. Therapist can understand the empathy among the one, he or she cannot apply the same empathetic level to the others one. Right? So this is a problem for the therapist. The therapist should master art of self-disclosure, but at the same time, do not bring own examples or feelings. आप अपने self, आप अपने, you can give the masters of yourself, आप अपने आप को self के बारे में बता रहे हैं, but that does not mean you cannot give the example about your own feelings or your own examples. Self-disclosure करना हमने. You have to self-disclose the client, you have to self-disclose, but that does not mean you start to apply your example to the client, right? So this is a big problem. The client-centered therapy do not care about diagnosis, which made it actively criticized. Diagnosis based चलना हमने, client focus है. Client रोजर्स ने कहा कि हर आदमी empowered है कि वो अपने आप को ठीक कर सकता है. So we cannot go for diagnosis. We have to focus on the self of the client only. Make him self-actualized. अनकंडीशनली उसको एक्सेप्ट करना, डायग्नोसिस के बेस पे एक्सेप्ट नहीं करना हमने उसको. अनकंडीशनली पॉजिटिव रिगार्ड. डायग्नोसिस बेस की कोई प्रॉब्लम आएगी, यू कैन नॉट डिनाई द क्लाइंट. अनकंडीशनल पॉजिटिव रिगार्ड है हमारा वहां पे. दिस इज ए बिग प्रॉब्लम. डायग्नोसिस कुछ कह रहा है, क्लाइंट का एथिक, जो थेरेपी का एथिक्स ये कहता है कि यू आर नॉट एक्सेप्ट करना आपने. This is the problem. The client-centered therapy can also work less well with people who find it difficult to talk about themselves or have a mental issue with influence their perception of. Suppose किसी के अंदर एक false reality है. Somebody is telling कि I'm the Modi only. वो किसी की भी नहीं सुनेगा आपकी. वो कहता है मैं तो मोदी से कम नहीं, right? मैं तो मोदी हूँ. He is not ready to listen to anyone, no one. So client-centered therapy can also work less well with people who find difficult to talk about themselves. वो तो कुछ फालतू सुनना नहीं चाह रहा है, ना अपने आप को बारे में बताना चाह रहा है. So it will be the difficulty for the therapist to work at the well level, good level, अच्छे level पे काम करना therapist के लिए प्रॉब्लम बन जाता है वहां पे, जब client is not ready to accept, listen. So this is another problem of the client-centered therapy. The process of change in client-centered therapy is predictable only. हम prediction कर सकते हैं सिर्फ कि थेरेपी क्लाइंट के अंदर ये चेंज होगा, ये चेंज होगा, ये चेंज होगा. इट्स अ वेरी जनरल टर्म और सब कुछ प्रेडिक्शन कर सकते. जब क्लाइंट जाएगा बड़ी प्रेडिक्टिंग मारेंगे, यस आई एम एक्सपर्ट, आई हैव 20 years of experience, ये वो मैं इतनी ठीक करती हैं. You can give just a false prediction, a general prediction, because it based on individuality of every client. अल्कोहल के 50 क्लाइंट ठीक करे आपने, एंजाइटी के 50 क्लाइंट ठीक करे आपने, डिप्रेशन के, बट आज के दिन जो आपके पास क्लाइंट है वो सुसाइडल है, आपने कभी ठीक नहीं किया है, राइट? बट आपके अंदर तो और कॉन्फिडेंस है ना एज ए थेरेपिस्ट कि मैं तो 50 क्लाइंट ठीक कर चुका हूँ. द प्रोसेस ऑफ चेंज इन क्लाइंट सेंटर्ड थेरेपी इज प्रिडिक्टेबल ओनली. हम प्रिडिक्शंस कर सकते हैं इन जनरल टर्म because it is based on individual, and individual is unique one. This is given by the McLean and all, M capital C small L capital EA and McLean 2015. So this is your client centered therapy. It's a big one. Now next I'm moving to structural family therapy. Structural therapy. Jean Paul Sartre, Sartrey, Sartre, 1905-1980, said, our values are what we choose. Bad faith is in double inverted commas. Our values are what we choose. Bad faith. That means what we choose. No one can choose the worst option. Everyone go for the best option to choose. But who will define this is best or this is worst? This is bad or this is right? Who will decide? Our values are what we choose. Bad faith. The right or wrong thing are to be chosen, are to be classified, are to be signified, are to be labeled by the social norms. Right? In our society, we have the norms of a gender difference. You go in America, we don't have a gender difference. Both are same. These are the social norms कि इंडिया में social norm है gender difference का है, अमेरिका में norms social norms नहीं है gender difference का. This is our values are what we choose. हमारी values हैं, but वो values जो choose करते they are to be interpreted, they are to be explained with the help of the society, social norms. The structural family therapy, the family unit is one example of a system that form a natural social grouping. Family is a natural social grouping. Family members regulate the responses to each others, has to internal and external support. Family is a natural social grouping, and every family members are to regulate, are to work together internally or externally, and this is given by Minuchin, M-I-N-U-C-H-I-N, 1974. M-I-N-U-C-H-I-N, 1974. Therefore, from a systematic viewpoint, the family as a whole and the individual that makes up the family are mutually influenced. The holistic approach of the family and the individual that they are mutually influencing each other. एक आदमी परिवार को इन्फ्लुएंस कर रहा है और फैमिली एक आदमी को इन्फ्लुएंस कर रही है. दो बोथ दे आर इन्फ्लुएंसिंग ईच अदर. एक बच्चा घर में आईएएस बन गया, पूरे परिवार को इन्फ्लुएंस कर दिया. एक बच्चा घर में शराबी बन गया, पूरे परिवार को इन्फ्लुएंस कर दिया. एक परिवार गरीब हो गया, बच्चा पढ़ना चाह रहा है, तो गरीबी है उसको नहीं पढ़ा पा रहे, तो उस बच्चे को इन्फ्लुएंस कर दिया. राइट? So family and the individual both are influencing each other. Salvador and Munchin is the founder of structural family therapy. Salvador, S-A-L-V-A-D-O-R, Salvador and Munchin, M-I-N-U-C-H-I-N, they are the founder of structural family therapy, which has been a leading model of the family therapy since its inception. जब से ये बनी है, सबसे leading model of family therapy, structural family therapy रहा है. It derived from the hysteric model. Hysteric model, structural family therapy, emerged in 1960s and 70s. Hysterical model. When there was the hysteria, that hysteria can be happen only within the female only. That was the World War, during the World War I and World War, it was open up that hysteria is not only for female, it can be anyone. Right? So this the conception of this idea of the structural family therapy is derived with the help of the hysteric model and the structural family therapy emerged in 1960s, 70s, a new model which contained practical ideas were easily transferable to society. Structural family therapy focuses upon the person within the family system rather than solely on the individual. Now you compare the client-centered therapy and the structural family system. We have a family structure. In general term, what is the structural family system? We have a structure in family. Every family is having a structure. Grandfather, father, mother, bete, beta, beti, chacha, chachi, जो भी family है, extended family है, nuclear family है या joint family है. Every family is having structure, and in that structure 4 to 5, 7 people are living, and all they are influencing to each other, right? So automatically structural family therapy focus upon the person within the family system. Person is important within the family system. Every person within the family system is an important one, right? So, but this depends on your cultural grooming. This depends on your cultural orientation, social orientation, how to consider the individual, the society. जब कभी समाज में आए, इंडियन सोसाइटी में जब छोटा बच्चा बोलता है ना, उसको थप्पड़ मारते, तू मेरे को एडवाइस देने लग गया, right? Because that level is not accepted by the social values कि वो छोटा सा बच्चा पेरेंट्स को एडवाइस देगा, because this is the social norms of Indian society. We would accept. That means structure, because एक family structure है, right? Dictatorship है, father ने जो बोल दिया, mother ने जो बोल दिया, right? But this is the structure. There are families where all are open, anyone can speak. They have their structure of family, right? So automatically, when we have focus upon the persons rather than the only on the individual, client centered therapy focus only on the individual, और ये structure family system है, within the family एक individual पे focus करना, अकेले individual पे नहीं करना, family को साथ लेके चलना है. So this is the definition of structure family therapy, right? एक बच्चे ने गलत कहा, फैमिली उसको समझाए कि स्ट्रक्चर हमारा स्ट्रक्चर है, स्ट्रक्चरल फैमिली थेरेपी है हमारी. स्ट्रक्चरल फैमिली थेरेपी इज एन अप्रोच दैट इज फाउंडेड अपॉन द नोशन ऑफ द इंटररिलेशनशिप of the complete family, right? Structural family therapy is an approach that is founded upon the notion, एक किस आइडिया के ऊपर डेवलप हुआ है ये कि इंटररिलेशनशिप ऑफ द फैमिली. तो सब पूरी फैमिली के इंटररिलेशंस, ऑल द फैमिली मेंबर्स आर इंटरनली कनेक्टेड, इंटरनली रिलेटेड, एंड दिस इज द बेसिक criteria for the development of this therapy. Structural family therapy is also unique in that it focuses on the present rather than the past. Now you compare client centered therapy में client past से शुरू होता है और present पे बाद में आता है. ये जो structural family therapy है present पे शुरू होती है, past पे नहीं जाती. हमारी present problem बताओ क्या है? Structural family therapy is a unique because it focuses on the present rather than the past. This is given by Colapinto. Colapinto is a name of person who has stated this definition of the structural family system. Colapinto, that is Colapinto. I'm repeating the name, Colapinto, Colapinto 1982. They define structural family therapy is unique because it focuses on the present rather than the past. The rationale behind this idea is that past dysfunctions are manifest, accumulated in current functioning. हमारे पास्ट में कुछ खराब रहा तभी तो हम आज पागल हो गए ना. This is the meaning. The rationale, the idea behind this logic to focus on the present rather than the past is that past dysfunctions are manifest in present function. Accumulation of dysfunctions of the past is reflected in our behavior, present behavior. Hence, therefore, a change in current functioning could alter dysfunction behavior. Minuchin is the name of a person who is founder, has stated this meaning of structural family therapy, MINUCHIN 1974. MINUCHIN 1974 said the idea behind this focusing on present rather than past is that the past dysfunction, past problem are accumulated in the current functioning, right? So we are to focusing on the current, that is the present. Structural family therapy, the key concept, focus is on family interactions to understand the structure, organization of the family. Not the focus on the individual, but the focus on the family to understand the structure and the organization of the family. symptoms, presenting problem viewed as by product of the structural fail. जब हमारा फैमिली स्ट्रक्चर फेल हो जाता है तो हमें पागलपन के सिम्टम्स डेवलप होते हैं, अबनॉर्मलिटी के सिम्टम्स तब डेवलप होते हैं जब हमारा फैमिली स्ट्रक्चर खराब हो जाता है, राइट? So structural changes must occur in a family before an individual system can be reduced, right? Structural changes must occur in a family before individual symptoms can be reduced. So the functions of structural family therapy. The functions of structural family therapy. The therapeutic task is to help move family from dysfunctional stage to the new stage. जो dysfunctional family structure में आ चुका है उसको न्यू प्लेटफॉर्म पे जाने की जरूरत है. Evolved different structure have more stable level of functioning. मान लो एक घर में लड़ाई होगी है, उस लड़ाई को खत्म करके एक नया प्लेटफॉर्म बनाना पड़ेगा, राइट? बाप और बेटे की लड़ाई होगी है, या तो बेटे को कॉम्प्रोमाइज करना पड़ेगा, बाप को कॉम्प्रोमाइज करना पड़ेगा. वी हैव टू डेवलप न्यू प्लेटफॉर्म, राइट? अदरवाइज वो डिसफंक्शनल रहेगा ही रहेगा. सो वी आर मूव टू द न्यू स्टेज within the family and where we can be more structural based functioning. Actively engaged family unit to initiate structural changing by joining and accommodating. Accommodating is the best solution of your family structure. कहीं पे लाइन खींच दो तो accommodating नहीं बनेगा. Challenging rigid transactional pattern. Rigidity जो है, orthodox system जो है, that is to be challenged. So structural family system में हम क्या होता है, हमारा एक फैमिली होती है, उसके आगे फैमिली का सब सिस्टम होता है, सब सिस्टम में क्या होता है, हस्बैंड वाइफ होती है, पेरेंटल मदर और फादर होते हैं, सिबलिंग्स में चिल्ड्रंस होते हैं, आगे जाके एक्सटेंडेड फैमिली में ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स एंड रिलेटिव्स होते हैं, चाचा ताऊ मामा फूफा जो भी होते हैं. ऑल फैमिली मेंबर्स प्ले डिफरेंट रोल इन ए सब सिस्टम. सब सिस्टम द फैमिली दैट इज ए मदर फादर पेरेंट्स चिल्ड्रन सिबलिंग्स एंड द एक्सटेंडेड फैमिली, all they are playing a different role in the subsystem of the family. Difficulty when any subsystem take over or encroach another. जब हम एक दूसरे को टेक ओवर करते हैं तब फैमिली में प्रॉब्लम आता है, राइट? When we start to encroach each others, then our problem starts to generate in our family. Boundaries. What are the boundaries of structural family therapy? Emotional physical barriers that define amount and kind of contact allowable between members. Emotional physical barriers है यहाँ पे, right? That creates a barriers between the members of the family. Emotional physical barriers. You go in rural areas, the male cannot sit with the female. Female cannot sit with the male. You seen in many times in the bus traveling, the female sitting on the seat. The male cannot share. He prefer to get up from the seat and offer a seat to the female. This is physical barriers. Emotional barriers create a problem within the family structure. Extreme boundaries may lead to dysfunction. Extreme boundary may lead to dysfunctions of the family. Disengagement, rigid, little commitment, closeness to family can cause another boundaries. Then clear, healthy boundaries attain sense of personal identity. Personal identity होती है हर इंसान का, पर्सनल ईगो लेवल जनरेट हो जाता है वहां पे, जो बाउंड्री जनरेट कर देता है, right? So there is a structure. The boundaries I discussed. So what are the structural goals of the structural family therapy? The first one, to the extent permitted by the hypothesis, the therapist determines immediate goal for the intervention. Number one, reduce symptoms of dysfunction. The first structural goal of the structural family therapy is reduce system or symptoms of the dysfunctions. Dysfunctional system को symptoms को हमने control करना, पहला गोल ये है. Second goal है bring about structural change, because it is assumed that faulty family structures have structural change करना है. Faulty family structures can create boundaries that are rigid or that are diffuse, right? Because subsystem that have appropriate tasks and functions. Subsystem of family may have some inappropriate task for the family. How we are to intervene? That is intervention in your structural family therapy. Intervening in a way designed to transform an ineffective structure. The therapist to facilitate change in pattern of transactional sequence among family members. Transactional होगा, right? System जो change होगा ना, एकदम नहीं होगा, sequence पे होगा between self and family members के अंदर. You cannot isolate one member of the family. You cannot isolate family in one at the cost of one member, right? Sequential change होगा at the cost of self and the family members. Through your intervention of the therapist, there will be sequential change happen at the level of individual and at the level of family both. You cannot isolate either one. To control for variable in the transactions so that the effects of the intervention can be assessed. जो controlling जो problematic factors हैं उनको control करना पड़ेगा ताकि interventions का effect मापा जाए कि हाँ कोई ना कोई intervention counseling या psychotherapy की असर हो रहा है, right? So feedback on the basis of the reactions of family members to be intervention. Feedback जरूर लेनी है आपने, member से भी, family member से भी, सबसे. And after getting the feedback, the therapist start to cycle from second step. Feedback ले लिया, उसके बाद second step शुरू करना. Structural technique. The steps of structural technique. Number 1 joining, पहले आप join करेंगे. फिर आप imparting systematic view, एक systematic view develop करेंगे आप, उसको restructure करेंगे, making rules, relationship, structure known करेंगे, जो family का structure उसको समझेंगे, उसके बारे में rule और relationship को समझेंगे, intensity of the problem समझेंगे आप, circular questioning समझेंगे आप, circulate करेंगे questions को एक दूसरे के बाद, unbalancing, जब circulate किया questions आपने कोई communicate किया, तो unbalance कौन-कौन हुए हैं, right? Triangulation, triangle बनाना पड़ेगा आपको, triangle में भी you, your client and the family, triangle बनाना पड़ेगा, boundary बनानी पड़ेंगी आपको कि एक ही client बोला जा रहा, family को बोलने का मौका नहीं दिया जा रहा, family बोली जा रही, client नहीं बोलने का मौका दिया जा रहा, right? You have to create boundaries. Everyone there is a time to speak. Reframing, relabeling, reframe करना पड़ेगा और करना पड़ेगा. शराबी है घर में, for you he is not an alcoholic, but शराबी family के लिए, right? So you have to reframe the terms, you have to relabel the person. Paradoxical technique, right? और एक आपने prescribe the system, एक system को prescribe करेंगे. By that system you have to go for therapeutic alliance. Therapist awareness. Before therapeutic alliance or agreement, the therapist must be aware that about your role, your position, your function in the family. You being outsider in the new family, you must role, your position, and your functions. You are going to act in the family member. You must aware about all these things. Your family of origin issues. Your family of origin issues. General and unresolved. जो फैमिली आपने एक्सेप्ट किया है उसकी origin of issues क्या है, जनरल है और unresolved है. Then cultural factors, yours and theirs, दोनों की कल्चरल गैप है तो उसको भी आपने अवेयर करना पड़ेगा, अंडरस्टैंड करना पड़ेगा. कल्चरल फैक्टर yours and theirs, you have to understand, right? So hopefully I am finished with my presentation. Now I am asking for any question.
Sir, I have a question, sir. Am I audible?
You are very much
Hello.
audible, Rashmi ji.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. Sir, I have a question. In most of the cases, it has been observed a person, I'm talking about person-centered therapy. A person might be suffering,
You're talking
might
about?
be
Oh, sorry.
person-centered therapy. But when a person is accepting that they have some problem, they need the counselor's help, they are conscious about their problem, right? And somehow in their
Just 1
conscious
minute. Hold
mind.
on. 1 minute. Hold on. 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Hold on, please. 1 minute.
Yes, yes.
मैं मीटिंग में ऑनलाइन यार 10 मिनट में फ्री हो रहा हूँ, काट रहा हूँ इसलिए यार प्लीज। मैं 10 मिनट मीटिंग में फ्री हो रहा हूँ, काट रहा हूँ बार बार फोन यार मैं। हाँ जी।
Hello, sir. Sir,
Sorry.
I'm talking. Oh, it's fine. I'm talking about a case of person-centered therapy, right? When a person is accepting that they have some problem, they are suffering, they need the professional selves, they reach to the counselor and giving an opportunity to the counselor to healing them, to open up them. But it is on the secondary stage, I think, until unless persons are suffering and just blaming on others and the others are victimizing. So in such a case, how to motivate a person that they need professional self? What do you say?
You know, until or unless you cannot stabilize the client, your stabilizations of the client is the best. Stabilization in terms of your emotion, stabilization in terms of your thinking, stabilization in terms of your action. The client is not ready to listen, the client is not ready to accept, right?
No, sir. I'm talking when a client reach to the counselor, actually they are accepting that they have some problem and they need professional help. But to reach that motivation, sometimes people are not accepting. They're just suffering and suffering. They are not interested to reach to the counselor. In such a case, yes,
When they are accepting, they have the problem,
yes,
right? They accepting they
yes,
have the problem, and but they are not reaching accessible to the counselor, and they are suffering and suffering.
yes,
So
yes, yes, yes,
that means their normal way of life is going on irrespective of the intervention of the therapist, number one. Number two,
yes,
they may not have
yes,
that severe level of disturbance within their person, within the family. They are having a
yes,
manager level of the problem. And when
yes,
the level of problem cross the level, then obviously they will go to the therapist. You take one example. You have a headache. Suppose we have a headache. It is a
yes,
manageable, we will not take the medicine. When it
yes,
don't manageable, we'll start to take the medicine. The same applicability is there in terms of the client who is not accepting, the family who is not accepting the treatment.
yes,
Because this is the degree,
yes,
this is the frequency, this is the damaging level of the problem they are facing. This is manageable.
yes.
When it across the boundary, then they will reach to the counselor therapist automatically to seek the help.
Yes, but
Anyone?
till then it might be too late. Sir, till then it might be too late for them. Am I right? So that they are
Yeah,
affecting multidimensional sphere of their life, in their society, in their working place, and then at last, when all things are affected, then they realize. So, how to motivate those person on
yeah.
psychodynamic or any other way?
Basically, yeah. You can motivate them by giving a different sessions,
Psychodynamic.
and whosoever is the
Yeah.
right person, whosoever you are to find the right person who can to
Yes,
motivate
sir.
him, to find out
Okay,
the
him
right
or her.
person.
Hmm.
Yes, you have to motivate him to find
Yes,
the right person.
yes.
Only then you can motivate him through the intervention of their own resources.
Okay, and
You
to reach
you
to the. Yes,
as a
yes.
counselor, you as a counselor is new to him or her.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. So you are to intervene him through some his or her confidential resources.
Yes. And sir, one more question. At what circumstances a person accepting they have some problem, but they are totally blame on others? It is their lack of self-esteem or other things?
No, 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 no. These are called defense mechanisms. Usually the
Okay.
majority, usually the majority of people are having the mechanisms to adopt these defensive aspects.
To
When they
boost
don't
their,
accept, when they don't accept the reality, they go for
yes,
defense mechanisms.
and blaming others.
Yeah, that's why they blame you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, I have, sir, one more question on MCFT3. May I ask?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. In this case, we have to make a genogram, okay, for the respondent. But in few cases, it has been observed the stressor is not belong from the family. They are belong outside the family, right? Hello.
Okay.
When the stress is not does not belong from the family of the respondent, then we cannot show them on the genogram. So then where we write about the stressor, right? Steps
You
are
know,
aims, preparation, genogram. Yes, sir. Hello.
stressors, the triggers of
Yes,
stress
yes,
may be
yes, yes,
within
yes.
or the exhaustive.
Hmm.
They may be extended family, may be group, right? You can read the genograms,
Hmm.
extended genogram.
Okay, extended genogram. Then
You
outside
can
family.
generate further another extended genogram.
Okay, sir. But I have no idea on
That is called a
extended.
extended. That is called extended genogram.
So it is not observed in our
Hello.
manuals. Hello, sir. I'm audible. You are audible. Sir, extended genogram frame out we
Yeah.
are not having in our manuals. So will you help us to
Even
show how to do
even
extended genogram?
it is not there in manual. Listen, even it is not there in manual to go for the extended source or the external source of the stressors. Number one, listen, the
Yes, sir.
triggers you are getting, suppose
Yes,
somebody is harassing me from outside, but
yes,
I'm the effective one. So
yes,
triggers for my family, I'm the
yes,
stressor for my family,
yes,
right? So
yes,
somebody is harassing me from outside, nobody, so I'm the triggers, I'm the stress for the family. So I'm to be mentioned there in genogram as stressors.
yes. Yes, that I know. But if the
Am I
stressor
right?
outside the family, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Then how to draw
Madam,
extended
stressor is
genogram?
outside. Listen, stressors from the outside is there. The stressor
Yes.
is not affecting the complete family. The stressor is affecting a particular individual within the family.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Particular. Yes.
So
Respondent. Yes.
that individual is working as a stressor for the family.
Yes. Okay. 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 So extended genogram, a diagram will you show in the next class? Just
No,
one
no,
diagram.
then no need to make the extended genogram. A
Hmm.
person is from external side affecting someone inside the family. Whosoever is
Yes.
affected within the family is to be the stressors for the family.
Yes, sir. Yes. So we have to write about that stressor, not in the genogram, but interpretation and discussion. May I correct?
Madam, you have to write that genogram and write the name of that person in the family who is causing a stressor, cause of the stress within the family. You have to refer the
Yes.
name. The
Yes.
outsider is not affecting the complete family, but affecting
Yes.
a individual only.
Yes.
And that is the
But
stressors of the family. You have to mention the name of that stressors in your genogram.
genogram. Okay. but it is too complicated. Will you should take an example next day, next class, and little bit explain how to what to show in the genogram?
Madam,
Because yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Stressors are working externally,
Yes.
and external stressors are affecting a specific person in the family,
Yes.
and that person is creating a problem in the family.
Yes.
So that person who is creating a problem through external stress or external
Yes.
triggers is the
Yes.
stressors for the family.
Yes.
एक परिवार में एक आदमी ने किसी को शराब पिला दिया.
Yes.
You know Hindi? You know Hindi?
Yes, I know Hindi also. Thank you. Yes.
एक आदमी ने किसी को शराब पिला दिया और उस आदमी ने जाके घर में मारपीट शुरू कर दिया.
Yes, sir.
That person, a person got drink from outside with someone,
Yeah.
and while
Yes.
he joined the family, he start to beat the family.
Yes, sir.
Who is the stressor there?
Yes.
Who is the
Stressor.
stressor?
Yes, sir. The person who entering in the family and disturbing. The person of the family.
Obviously, the root is outside, but the
Root is
problem in the family. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that person is the stressor.
But in case if my respondent is blaming someone outside from the family for his stressor, suppose I am taking an interview and in that interview this person is saying he or she is my stressor and they are outside of family, then
Madam,
how
you're
do
not
I
getting my
explain?
point. You're not getting my point. But I give you the example. A blame,
Yes.
how you can prove the blaming right or wrong? आई एम टेलिंग,
Okay.
मैं
Yes.
ये कह रहा हूँ मुझे किसी ने बाहर शराब पिला दी. मैं कहता हूँ किसी ने पिला दिया, मुझे
Yes,
जबरदस्ती
sir.
थोड़ी पिलाया. देयर इज सम willingness of myself is there ना.
Yes, sir.
So how I can completely blame to others? This is the defense mechanism. The person who is blaming other, they are the defense mechanisms only.
Okay. Okay. Okay, sir.
They are applying
That's
defense mechanism to save the skin.
right.
Otherwise, he himself or he herself is the stressor.
Okay, sir. Okay. And sir, I have one doubt regarding qualitative tool and quantitative tool analysis. In case of mini research, one day I will ask you few related question. Okay, sir?
Just
Hello.
hold on, please. Hold on, just please.
Yes, yes, sir.
विश्वराज, मैं बोल चुका, मीटिंग में बैठा हूँ, मैं निकल रहा हूँ 10 मिनट में. यार मेरे को जीने दो. 10 मेरी ऑनलाइन मीटिंग डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हो आप यार, प्लीज. हेलो.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have doubts regarding qualitative tool analysis and quantitative tool analysis in case of mini research. So, will you give me privilege one more day to discuss about that?
Okay, we'll discuss on another day, qualitative and quantitative, whatever you. Some others might have some questions, so they might
Yes.
get some chance.
Sir, thanks a lot.
Hello, sir. This side.
प्रिय विद्यार्थियों, समय की व्यवस्था को देखते हुए जो शेष पर्सन है वो आप कल की कक्षा में लें. तो विशेष रूप से आग्रह है, तो समय ज्यादा हो गया है, दूसरी कक्षा का भी समय आरंभ होने वाला है. तो थैंक यू डॉक्टर साहब, थैंक यू.